व्याख्यान के लिए हमारे जो प्रोफेसर आनंद कुमार जी शर्मा हैं उनको आमंत्रित करता हूं कि हमारे जो अगले वक्ता हैं वो उनको आमंत्रित करें, उनका परिचय दें।
नमस्ते सबको। I'm very privileged to introduce the speaker of this session, Acharya Brahmdev Mukandilal. Acharya Brahmdev has an inclusive educational background in science, banking, from University of Mauritius, management, ABE UK, and Darshanacharya Vedic philosophy from Darshan Yog Mahavidyalaya, Gujarat, and a diverse career in financial services industry and at Arya Sabha Mauritius. He has been a key resource person for Arya Sabha Mauritius on the universal Vedic values, yoga, and meditation, interfaith and intercultural dialogue at various national and international forums, Mauritius Council of Religions, Arya Pratinidhi Sabha America, Greater Atlanta Vedic Temple, Hindu Center at Atlanta, Yoga and Meditation Center at Carmen, Toronto Arya Samaj and Arya Samaj Markham, and currently connected to several other organizations worldwide on Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, and Zoom. He is author of numerous insightful articles on Vedic philosophy and contemporary issues in English and French, with the daily sharing on social media. I had a personal conversation with him when I was conducting Satyaarth Prakash International Pratyogita, and he was the resource person for translation of the question paper into French. I hope he remembered, and thank you for that wonderful service which you rendered, because I didn't know anybody who was conversant and a scholar in French. Acharya Brahmdev is very well known on social platform, and he doesn't need this long introduction, because his insightful articles, pieces are available every day, and we are really thankful for very scholarly presentation on contemporary issues. With these words, I invite him to deliver his address. Welcome, sir.
Om. Sabhi ko sadar namaste. Namaste, everybody. Let's sit down, close our eyes gently, do Om Jap 3 times to bring our mind to focus. Deep inhale, and while exhaling, we are going to chant Om. Om. Gently, slowly open the eyes and keep the focus. Satyaarth Prakash. Maharishi Dayanand starts first chapter with the mantra Om Shanno Mitra Shanvaruna Shanno Bhavatvariyama Shanna Indro Brihaspati Shanno Vishnu Rurukrama. We are familiar with this mantra from Satyaarth Prakash, from Yajurveda, chapter 36, Shanti Sukta. But if we have a glance at Arya Bhivinay, we'll see how Maharishi Dayanand unfolds the name of Ishwar God. But before I go into the subject, let me, all protocols observed, eminent personalities on this Google Meet today, welcome and namaste. There's somebody who is unmuted and that is creating an echo. Kindly please unmute yourself. Mute yourself. Let's look into some of the essentials from the Bhumika, because starting with Satyaarth Prakash, a proper understanding of the preface is essential. The goal of the Satyaarth Prakash is Satyarth ka Prakash karna. Acknowledge truth as truth and falsehood as falsehood. And what is truth? जो पदार्थ जैसा है उसको वैसा ही कहना, लिखना और मानना. That is how we've seen something, we've perceived something. We have to speak about it like it is. If we have to write about it, we write as it is and acknowledge it as it is. And Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati gives the way of dealing with our study of this masterpiece. I would say masterpiece because it's a masterpiece among the literary works of Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati. It's condensed that Vedic knowledge to bring us, as we say, to the path of dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It says, विद्वान आप्तों का यही मुख्य काम, स्वयं अपना हिताहित समझकर सत्यार्थ का ग्रहण और मिथ्यार्थ का परित्याग. So of all people who are learned or on the learning curve, just acknowledge truth for your own welfare and shun untruth. And he says, the soul in the human body has perfect capacity to distinguish between truth and untruth. Unfortunately, for selfish motives, in the words of Maharishi Dayanand, अपने प्रयोजन के सिद्धि के लिए दुराग्रह, हठ दुराग्रह और अविद्या आदि दोषों से सत्य को छोड़ असत्य में झुक जाता है. It's only for selfish motives, but if we listen to our inner voice, the divine guidance will always be on the path of truth. And he gives the methodology of dealing with this book. So often we hear people blaming the Satyaarth Prakash. It says the four approaches is, one is akanksha. That is, often words don't suffice to explain what we want to explain. But then if we are trying to understand, let's be within the context, not go outside it. Then yogyata. At times one word implies other things that it goes. And Maharishi Dayanand has given it. Irrigation implies water. Though we can say fire irrigates, grammatically is correct, but physically it's not possible. As we say, I would add another example to that. Our objective is to live in peace, P-E-A-C-E. But if I understand it to be P-I-E-C, where do I live? My life will be in pieces. Asati, care about intonation, punctuation. Because, as we know, say somebody has been within the gallows for a death penalty and the judge gets new evidence and sends a message. Wait, not kill. And the person transmitting the message says, wait, not kill. What happens? Consequences are totally different. In understanding the Satyaarth Prakash, especially chapter 1, we have to pay attention to these things. Then Tatparya, the contextual meaning. Don't go outside. Words, especially in Sanskrit, have so many meanings, but just take it within the context. I'll just give you an example. A simple word, C-A-N in English. When I use it as a verb, it's I can. But if I use it as a can, that is another thing, as a noun. So please remain within the context. And then he says, अविद्वान लोग अन्यथा ही विचारेंगे, बुद्धिमान लोग यथा योग्य इसका अभिप्राय समझेंगे. So those who are going astray will never get the knowledge that is there. So let's stick to the principles of learning. And the principles of learning is given in another chapter in between, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, and Sakshatkar. Shravan means listening, because when we didn't have pen and paper, we were just listening Shruti. Now we read more than listening. So I would include within Shravan, within the context of nowadays, also reading. Then Manan is about contemplation. When we read Satyaarth Prakash, let's not read it from A to Z at one go. Let's go slowly. Contemplate on the subject. Then when we are in doubt, put the questions. That is Nididhyasan. To come to the truth. And once we come to the truth, that is Sakshatkar, realization of the knowledge. Unfortunately, chapter 1 deals with the most abstruse of subject, most complicated subject in this book. Why chapter 1? The concept of God. And this is something which has led so many wars, unfortunately in the name of God, crusades, jihads, etc. But the most argued subject, the most fought on subjects, the subject which probably has created the greatest genocides in the world. Let's spare ourselves from the trouble. Maharishi Dayanand has made the Satyaarth Prakash chapter 1 as a storehouse of knowledge on Ishwar, God. Why, in the first place, this was the question to Maharishi Dayanand which brought him out of his house. The concept of God that was taught to him was not the proper one, and on the Shivratri night, when he realized that, he took the decision to go and look and search for God. I would beg to differ from the previous speakers or speakers generally when talking about Satyaarth Prakash. I would go more into questions and answers, which answers to the relevance of this chapter within the world of today. Om as the prime main name of Ishwar, God. I would just say it's the universal sound given to every human being. If we just step out of bed and stretch out and listen carefully to what is the sound, whether spoken or silent, that comes out of our mouth, it's always Om. And this is the word which, when we chant as the name of God, is most soothing. Om. It regulates the flow of energy starting from the navel region, the belly button region, moving upwards to the spine. And when the Ma is there, if we pay careful attention, we can feel the vibrations at the level of the skull within the brain. And all peaceful. The chanting of Om activates the energy levels within the body with the traveling of the vibrations across. And among the various names of Ishvara God, which we know, let's look at each of the names within the context. Prakaran Anukul se sab naam Ishwar ke hai, in the words of Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati. The context implies the place, the time we are addressing to, and the circumstance. As we say, if I am addressing one single word, Bhagavan at the time of prayer, it refers to Ishvara. But if I am addressing somebody else as Bhagavan, it means a benefactor to me. So the circumstance also changes the meaning of the word. But then all these names that we find, the 100 names in the chapter, plus in the words of Maharishi Dayanand, thousands of other names, all these pertain to the one and only Ishvara God. Ekm Sad vipraa Bahudhaa Vadanti. Even that sentence from the Veda, that part of the mantra, Sukti from the mantra of the Veda, is wrongly understood. The word is Ekam, Ek, but people say it's multitude. How come? And worse, chanting the Arti Bhajan, we say Tumho Ek Agochar, with the multitudes that we've created, unfortunately. And if we go to the prayers, let alone the Arya Samaj people, all the other parts of the Hindu community, they start with Hiranya Garbha. They don't say Vishwani Deva Savitar, because these people know what they are doing. Dukh Durgun Durvyasan ko lekar ke aage badh rahe. So they start with Hiranya Garbha Samavartata Agre Bhutasya Jata Patireka Asit. Patireka Asit, one and only one God. So to understand that, we need to understand our relationships with Ishvara, because if we don't understand our relationship with Ishvara, what happens is that we always think this is somebody else, distant, far place. So let's understand, as we say God in English, it's generator, operator, and dissolver of the universe. Savita, creator. Srishti ka banane wala, fir chalane wala. The operator, the sustainer of this universe. Or pralay dene wala. That is the dissolver. So God itself is an acronym if we link it to the definitions. Then God as the giver of knowledge of the Vedas, not only the Vedas, but the whole world itself, the universe, the physical sciences, social sciences, and everything. Then karma phal pradata, which I'll come to that at some later point. Then understand our relationship. God as the creator, mata, pita. Then bandhu, sakha, our sibling nearest, closest to us. Then Param Guru, the first Guru, was given us the knowledge of the universe, the knowledge of the Vedas. Then understand that concept of omnipresence, which relates to Vyapya Vyapak Sambandh. Vyapya Vyapak Sambandh. So many people say God cannot be omnipresent because he is in me and I'm doing wrong, so he's doing wrong. No. It's like the rasgulla, the cheese ball in syrup. If you remove that rasgulla from the syrup and wash it under water, drain it, all the sweetness will go. So it says the syrup doesn't mix up with that. God is just like that. Or take a cotton ball and plunge it in water. Water is all around the cotton ball, and inside the cotton ball is inside the water. But both are two separate, distinct entities. No Ishvara as the Purush, but Param Purush. as the Atma and Param Atma, no equal or superior. No Ishwar as Sat Chit Anand, Sat jiski satta hai, existent. Chit, conscious. So no dull, that is not something which doesn't observe us, but observe us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Then Anand, all blissful, जिसके आनंद में लेश मात्र भी दुख नहीं है. No single trace of dukh. No Ishwar as omnipresent, present everywhere and at all times. No Ishwar as omniscient sarvadya, all knowledgeable and aware of all our actions from the level of thoughts, words, and physical actions. Two qualities which are referred there, Dayalu and Nyayakari, which seems contradictory but are not, they are complementary. Dayalu, when we understand that, Ishwar merciful. Whatever evil we are doing, He's always within us, prompting us to be on the right path. When we are doing wrong, we have the sense of fear, doubt, and everything. And when we are right, we have the sense of joy, elation, motivation to go ahead. So they are complementary. So when we look at the Satyaarth Prakash, 100 names of God, we can see that it appears to be contradictory, but they are complementary if we just do some contemplation, some deep thinking. Then there is another question about Sarva Shaktiman, Almighty. The question comes, Ishwar kya nahi kar sakta hai? What can't Ishwar do? And the answer will mean everything. No, not everything. God can't create another God like Himself. God doesn't go outside the laws, the rite of the creation. Water flows from the mountain top down the rivers to the sea. You'll never find it flow from the sea up the river to the mountain top. It's another process to bring that water up again. So it's always complying to the laws of nature. It's we human beings who go doing the shortcuts and say no. Like another thing which we used to say, Ishwar ki marzi ke bina patta nahi hilta hai. No. If that is like that, then Ishwar fails ad nyayakari kalma phal pradata. We should understand that karma is ours. We are free to do our karma, but we are not free in choosing the fruits of the karma. We are bound by the positive outcome for positive karma and negative outcome for negative karma. If we start understanding these things, then we'll understand that all these names pertain to one and single entity. Just like me, I'm the son of my father, I'm the grandchild of my grandfather. I'm the father of my kids. I'm the uncle for nieces and nephews. And each and everybody will call me according to the relationship. But if each and everybody starts fighting according to the relationship which he's using to address me, then it's a whole chaos in the world. And this is the chaos we've created in the name of God. I'll give you another example. If I'm sweeping my room, I'm a cleaner at that time. If I'm washing a handkerchief, then I'm a washer. If I'm cooking my food, I'm a cook. At that particular point in time, circumstances, and place. I'm driving my car, I'm the driver. I'm working for somebody else, I'm a worker. And there also I'm a subordinate to my superiors and a superior to my subordinates. And just imagine each and every one trying to pull out that personality of me. Where do I stand? Like I'm good, somebody calls me a good person. I've done something bad, somebody calls me bad. I'm honest, somebody will call me honest. I'm a cool person, somebody will call me cool. So according to gun, swabhav, nature, and karma, the names are different, but it pertains to one and single entity. So let's not break and make the division which Ishwar God doesn't do at its own end. Then the other word which is complex often to people is antaryami. So if antaryami, then the karma is not mine. The karma is for Ishwar. No, the Ishwar is only the guide. Karma is ours. So likewise, when we understand Nyayakari, we have to understand the concept which we've learned of tirth, of having special bath, visiting special places to wash off our sins. Ishwar kabhi maaf nahi karta hai. We'll have to reap what we sow. That's a boomerang karma. It always comes back to us. So if we understand those concepts of God, we'll be clearing our path to understand that heaven and hell are no other far-fetched places. It's the way we live. We make a heaven out of our life, or we make hell out of our life. We are the makers of our destiny when we understand the concept of God as omnipresent, present everywhere and at all times, which enables the other quality, omniscient, knowledgeable of everything going around the world. If it's not omnipresent, it's only present within one place. If, like when we go into the 5 standards of proof, 5 tests of proof, Srishti Kram, and according to the Vedas. Srishti Kram, if I have this at my place, it cannot be somewhere else in this world. So if we've made a form of God and think that God is here, it cannot be elsewhere in the world. And if it cannot be elsewhere in the world, then it cannot see, it cannot listen, it cannot hear, it cannot take cognizance of what others are doing elsewhere in the world. Like the world is a sphere like this. If God is sitting here, it can't see here, below. So we say Ishwar Sarvajya, know everything everywhere in this world. So omnipresence should be there. It's like we say air is everywhere in the world. But once we contain it in a balloon, that air in the balloon ceases to be omnipresent. I've seen one video which somebody shared with me. I'm just doing a small diversion. One eminent guru of nowadays said, nowhere Ishwar has written that he needs a mandir or a murti. Probably some of you may have come across this video. Very fine. But that same guru has made a mandir with a murti of, I think, 18 meters high, with an eminent personality going for the inauguration. So coming back to what Professor Ranveer was saying about thoughts, words, and speech, I would add to that. He said, Yad manasa tad vacha vadati. He went on this line, but I will take it from there. Manasyanyat karmanyanyat duratmanam. You're speaking of something, you're thinking about something. God has never said, don't put a mandir, don't put a murti. But you yourself done it, so there is dissonance between thoughts, words, and actions. So it says the shlok, Manasyanyat karmanyanyat duratmanam, manasyekam karmanyekam, manasyekam vachasyekam karmanyekam mahatmanam. So if we want to be Mahatmas, let's go and put harmony in our concepts. And the Satyaarth Prakash chapter 1 enables us, empowers us to put harmony. I've seen one question and I'm going to answer that because it's in the course of my flow. The other question to which we hit the wall is about Sagun and Nirgun Ishwar. Sagun and Nirgun Ishwar, it's generally taken, Sagun Ishwar is the one which has a form, and Nirgun Ishwar is the formless one. So it's two entities, it's no longer one and only Ishwar God. We've already diverged. Then Sagun Ishwar. Sagun means jisme wo gun hai. That is, with those qualities, with those attributes. I will give some example. Sat, Chit, Anand. Existent, conscious, intelligent. Sarva Shaktiman. Ishwar is almighty, omnipotent. Ishwar is Nyayakari, all just. Ishwar is Sarvadhar, the support of all. Ishwar is Pavitra, pure, perfect. Ishwar is Nirgun, Nirakas, having no form. Ishwar is Nirgun, Ajanma, never born. Anant, has no end. Nirvikar, doesn't change. Ajar, doesn't get old. Amar, doesn't die. And if we have to see, Anupam, no equal, none equal to him. Then what are the misconceptions on Sagun and Nirgun Ishwar? Sagun Stuti Prarthana Upasana is often wrongly understood to be idol worship or worship of personal gods, deities, incarnations. Nirgun worship is understood as limited to the worship of God only in the formless state. Those 100 names of God in the Satyaarth Prakash chapter 1 clears our concept. Ishwar in a particular form would cease to be Sarvavyapak, would cease to be omniscient, Sarvajya, which I said. And when it ceases to be Sarvavyapak and Sarvajya, then it can't be Dayalu and Nyayakari because it doesn't know my thought, it cannot give me that divine inspiration, and doesn't know my karma, so cannot be Nyayakari. But then contrary attributes. The question is, why contrary attributes do not coexist? Then it says, nothing in God's creation. The universe is simultaneously formless and has a form, or is visible and invisible under identical conditions. Water in liquid is visible. Water as solid ice is hard as rock. Water as vapor is very subtle. It's the same element, but circumstances differ. And Ishwar God doesn't transgress its own laws, the eternal laws of the universe. Doesn't need any assistance from any third party to perform its actions. Then why Ishwar is referred to as Sagun and Nirgun in the Vedas? Various words in the Veda refers to Ishwar as Sagun with the numerous attributes. I will just take an example, Gayatri Mantra, Bhur Bhuva Swaha, the giver of life, reliever of pains and sorrows, and all blissful. But the Vedas also describe the one and the same God as Nirgun Ishwar, na parthivo, na jato, na janishyate. Never born, is not born, will never be born. Akamo dhiro amritasya swayambhu, amritat swayambhu. Has no desires, never dies, and is never born. And the Vedas affirm, na tasya pratima asti. No image, no icon, no idol, no physical form. When the Vedas say it, you will distort it. But when others come to preach the same thing to us, we just accept it, blanket acceptance. Why? I'm not blaming anybody, but the first commandment of the Bible goes in the same way. Na tasya pratima asti. When we say it from the Vedas, you don't accept it. When somebody else comes and teach you the same thing, it's your own source knowledge, and give it to you, then you refuse to acknowledge that. That's not right. That's not being truthful. Then Yajurved, 40th chapter, 8th mantra, which is also in the Upanishad. Saparyaga chukramakaya avranam asnaviram shuddham apapa vidham. So if you want to take Sagun and Nirgun, Shuddham apapa vidham, describing more or less the same properties. Shuddh, pure. Apap, no evil. So Ishwar is Sagun and Nirgun, describing the same property with two different angles of approach. Then remember, God is one. We told about Ekm Sad vipraa Bahudhaa Vadanti, but Atharva Ved says, na ditiyo, na tritiyo, na chaturtho, etc. So can Sagun and Nirgun refer to one attribute? I gave you one example, Shuddham apapa vidham. If I take Anant, I can explain it as eternal. Eternal is Sagun. Never born, imperishable, which describes eternal. But never born and imperishable, this is Nirgun. If I say Pavitra means holy and pure, this is Sagun. I take Pavitra to be without any flaw, without any defect. That is Nirgun. That same word, I brought it into English and showing it to you simply. When I say Nyayakari, it's all just. But if I take it as impartial, all just is Sagun and impartial is Nirgun. But they are not for opposite attributes. Nirakar and Sakar are totally different attributes. Janma and Ajanma, that is being born and never be born, are two different, totally opposite attributes. Amar and Martya, two totally immortal and mortal. So we need to understand that. Yes, I will say the question, next question would be, does Sagun and Nirgun coexist, even if they pertain? Yeah, they coexist because, as I said, when you take Pavitra, holy, pure, and without flaw, without defect, so that coexist. It's like looking at the glass, which is half full and half empty at the same and one time. But the question is God not an exception? Param Purush, Paramatma? No. Supreme being, Paramatma, and when we say para, it's always above. We always refer to Uparvalana like this. In fact, it's not God living somewhere else above our head. When we refer to this, we say he's above us, above, beyond our thoughts, beyond our thinking. And we souls are simply Atma Jeev. And we understand the concept of Traidvad, Ishwar, Jeev and Prakriti. So it is to be noted that Ishwar is no exceptions to the laws of the creation. Then the question is, Atma and Jiva, Atma and Paramatma, are they not one and the same thing? Is Atma part and parcel of God? No. They are two distinct entities. I just say, if I take a melon, cut it into slices, the slices are still melon. It doesn't become pumpkin, it doesn't become cucumber. So if Atma was part and parcel of Paramatma, it should have retained the original qualities of Paramatma and not have different qualities. Then to understand the concept of Ishvara, the different names cannot be different gods. I just give another example in the world of today. Look at a mango. It consists of the peel, the pulp, and the seed. The peel has a function to protect the pulp and the seed. The pulp produces juice and it's tasty for eating, it's nourishing. And the seed to allow reproduction, give new trees, new plants, and new fruits. But the peel is not the mango. The pulp is not the mango. The seed is not the mango. It's the whole of the tree which makes the mango. So the 100 names of Ishvara God, the multiple names which we think about, is for one and the same entity. So we need to comprehend. We need to know that. And for that, we need to read very attentively the Bhumika. And I would recommend for a new reader, you please go through the Bhumika, then go at the end part, Swamantavya Mantavya Prakash, to understand in the broad lines the concept. Then try to start again Bhumika chapter 1 to 3. But if you find chapter 1 difficult, and in fact it's the most difficult of the topics for any beginner, then go to chapter 3 on education. You'll start seeing the Vedic philosophy unfolding. And then go to chapter 7, Ved Ishwarya Vishay. Talking about the Vedas, the knowledge of the Vedas. Go to chapter 8 on the creation, sustenance, and dissolution. And go to chapter 9 on Moksha Mukti. When we've understood that, now will be the Jidyasu, the seeker of knowledge to know the concepts of God. When we come back to chapter 1, we'll be able to understand it very easily, perfectly. But please don't take it as a blame on Maharishi Dayanand for having put the chapter 1 first. Rishis have always been like this. If we see the Yoga Darshan, Sankhya Darshan, and others, the main objective is on the first chapter. But let's take the approach. When we give the Satyaarth Prakash to somebody, let's tell him or her, please read carefully the Bhumika, have a gist of what is there in the concluding parts of Mantavya Prakash, then come to the normal study. And the Satyaarth Prakash is no exception to the knowledge that is there. The 5 tests of truth, the Vedas and nature of God, the laws of nature, the practice and teachings of Aptas, purity and conviction of the soul, and the 8 kinds of evidences. इसको हम प्रमाण बोलते हैं. प्रत्यक्ष, अनुमान, उपमान, शब्द, इतिहास, अर्थापति, संभव, and abhav. Nowhere in this book will be able to find a fault on the basis of the 5 standards of proof and the 8 standards of evidence. Cognizance, inference, analogy, testimony, history, deduction, possibility, or non-existence. It's all synchronized in perfect harmony. And when we are speaking about the Satyaarth Prakash, just remember we need to connect to people and not frustrate people. When we talk about the concept of God, let's be clear. If somebody doesn't understand, let's take the rituals that they are doing and speak about the spiritual undertones. Like whenever we go for prayer, the first thing we clear the space, clean the space, and when we go for prayer, we leave the shoes outside. But put the question, do we keep the dirt of our mind and our hearts outside? If we start putting questions like that, then people will realize God is always looking at us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let's start with kids by teaching the values of chapter 3. And in that line, the Satyaarth Prakash follows the verse of Manusmriti. Adbhiragatrani shuddhyanti mana satyena shuddhyati vidyatapobhyam bhutatma buddhirajyanena shuddhyati. It leads us to ultimately enlighten our own mind, purify our soul. And for that, the true concepts of God is very essential, or I would say primordial. That will help us to achieve Sangachadvam Samvadadvam Samvo Manansi Janatam. When our concepts are clear, our thoughts would be in one direction, and after our thoughts be in one direction, obviously our words and our actions would be in one direction. We'll be able to live spirituality as spiritual reality in our daily life. And remember, study of the Satyaarth Prakash. Practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect to the square. In the Sutra of Yog Darshan, Sa to dirkala nairantarya satkara sivito drer bhumi. Constant reading, regular study with lots of love and passion will bring us to that dher bhumi, to that stable, firm grounds on the concepts of Ishwar God. And to end with that, Maharishi Dayanand was incinerated 150 years back sometime. We are nearing 150 years now. Satyaarth Prakash is ever living in international forums, international conventions. Satyaarth Prakash is also living among other faith groups, but we fail to identify, we fail to associate ourselves with that. If we go back to the Bhumika, Maharishi Dayanand will say, you will see, he says, when he talks about the other faith groups, he says, जो जो मतों में सत्य है वो सब अविरुद्ध होने से उनका स्वीकार करके जो जो मत मंतांतरों में मिथ्या बातें हैं उनका खंडन किया है. Likewise, the concept of God, if we are able to understand properly, we are able to explain it properly to people, what will happen? The concepts will go universal. And with the concepts, when they go universal, people will be more inquisitive. They will look for the book to read, to study. And that's one way of bringing the book to the whole world and be relieved from Rishirin. I think I'm just within the time limit, 45 minutes. So I'll end here by a subtle appeal. Let's look at this book as a moksha shastra. Condensed knowledge, if we're able to devote time daily, read one paragraph, contemplate on that, and after contemplation, put the questions to us. Shravan Manan Nididhyasan will realize the truth of the subject. And when we realize the truth of the subject, especially Ishwar God, then we'll be moving towards Sharirik, Atmik, Samajik, Unnati. The holistic approach to wellness, physical, mental, moral, spiritual, and social upliftment of all. ध्यान के लिए धन्यवाद. Thank you for attention. Namaste ji. Open to questions as per the chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Acharya Brahmdev. He gave a very enlightening speech and he clarified certain things. He also emphasized upon the word Om as the main, dominant name or the predominant name of the God. In fact, today's science has also proved Om is the cosmic vibration. It is the vibration in cosmos that was created first during the creation itself. And that is how this Om has been associated with the name of God. And in 19th century India, Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati, he just verified those scriptures references and he emphasized that this name should be used. And moreover, the learned speaker, he also clarified certain things, just like the guna, karma and the swabhava, the nature, the rules and the merits, attributes of the God. And he gave certain examples. That was also very beautiful. And he also just tried to explain the heaven and hell. For your kind knowledge, all the lower species, lower than human beings, they are the hell. They are known as a naraka. Naraka means just to go down. Human being, the species of a human being is the level, is one of the level. And if you are going down to that you are going to the hell. And if you are uplifting yourself to the divinity, towards the moksha, that is known as a swarga. So these concepts of heaven and hell, these are very deep rooted concepts of the Indian philosophy. And if we are able to understand these concepts in a very beautiful way, clearly, I think there will be no doubt about this life and that life, life after this life. So, Satyaarth Prakash is a key to understand the Vedic philosophy. It is a key to understand Vedas. It is a key to understand Indian culture and Indian values. If you don't understand Satyaarth Prakash, you won't be able to know anything. Moreover, there are so many things to be discussed here, and some issues of Saguna, Nirguna, Nirakar and Sakar has been also mentioned by our learned speaker, but we have certain questions from the audience, and two questions are for Dr. Ranveerji, and one question is for Acharya Brahmdev. One of the questioner, Dr. Ranveerji, he wants to know the Saguna and Nirguna, and also in Mundakopanishad, you mentioned Mundakopanishad, and the listener, he wants to know whether this Om word has some association with Jagriti, Swapna and Shushupti, these three states of mind or whatever you say. तो क्या ओम का संबंध है, मुंडकोपनिषद में ओम का संबंध जागृति, स्वप्न और सुषुप्ति इन अवस्थाओं से है, और सगुण और जो निर्गुण है इनका वास्तविक अर्थ क्या है? डॉक्टर रणवीर जी.
जी डॉक्टर साहब
जी, हमारे
सगुण, हाँ, सगुण और जो निर्गुण परमात्मा के नामों के स्वामी दयानंद ने व्याख्या की है, वो जो साकार और निराकार से बिल्कुल भिन्न है. उसमें साकार और निराकार का स्वामी जी ने कोई प्रश्न नहीं उठाया है. सगुण और निर्गुण को वो गुण ही सहितम और गुणै विरहितम, इस प्रकार की व्याख्या स्वामी जी करते हैं कि मैं बताता हूँ आपको। सगुण की स्वामी जी ने जो व्याख्या की है कि भाई जो गुण परमात्मा के हैं, जैसे सर्व सुख, ज्ञान स्वरूपता, पवित्रता, अनंत आदि जो गुण है वो परमात्मा में होने के कारण वो सगुण है। और उसमें इनसे भिन्न जो अज्ञान आदि दोष हैं, जो या जो जीव के जो लक्षण होते हैं, जड़ पदार्थों के जो लक्षण होते हैं, तो वो परमात्मा में नहीं पाए जाते। तो इसलिए जो वहाँ उस परिस्थिति में परमात्मा उन गुणों से निर्गुण है, परंतु परमेश्वर के जो अपने गुण है उन गुणों के कारण वो सगुण है। और जो जड़ पदार्थों के और आत्मा के जो गुण है वो परमात्मा में नहीं पाए जाते, इसलिए वो निर्गुण है। तो स्वामी जी ने कहा कि प्रत्येक पदार्थ पृथ्वी पर गुणों से रहित नहीं हो सकता, वो निर्गुण भी होगा और सगुण भी होगा। तो उसी दृष्टि से दोनों की स्वामी जी ने व्याख्या की है कि भाई जो जैसे सत्व, रजस, तमस, रूप, रस, स्पर्श, गंध, ये जड़ के गुण होते हैं। तो ये जड़ के गुण परमात्मा में नहीं है, तो इन गुणों से वो विरहित है, इसलिए परमात्मा का नाम निर्गुण उन्होंने रखा। निर्गुण इस रूप में उन्होंने व्याख्या की परमात्मा के निर्गुण नाम की।
Very good. That's how I'm just coming to the second question, but let me explain. It's a very good answer given by Swami Dayanand himself. He just tried to explain that God is gifted with those qualities that should be assigned to him. He is devoid of the material qualities of the material things. That is why he is nirguna. And in other way also, simply you can say that if you are having positive qualities, you are saguna, and if you are devoid of the negative qualities, you are nirguna. But in case of Brahman, because the spiritual qualities are his qualities and the quality of matter are not the quality of Brahman, so he is devoid of the material qualities and he consists of the spiritual qualities or the qualities of creation, decreation, just all knowing. These things have also been explained by our previous speaker. But the next question, the questioner asked, तो ये ओम शब्द का प्रयोग मुंडकोपनिषद में आपने उसका उदाहरण भी दिया था, तो ये जानना चाहते हैं कि क्या इस ओम शब्द का जो ये स्वप्न, सुषुप्ति और जागृति दो चार अवस्थाएं हैं, तुरीयावस्था है, क्या इनसे कोई संबंध है या वो अलग अवस्थाएं हैं, ये अलग है?
इसी मुंडकोपनिषद ने ओम को इसी रूप में व्याख्यात किया है। देखिए 8वें मंत्र में तो वो कहता है कि वे ओमकार जो है वो अकार, उकार और मकार का संयुक्त रूप है। 8वें मंत्र में कहा सोयम आत्मा अध्यक्षरम ओंकारो अधिमात्रम पादा मात्रा मात्राश्च पादा आकार उकारो मकार इति। ओंकार में ये जो अर्थात ये जो आत्मा अक्षर दृष्टि से ओंकार है और उसमें ओंकार में अकार, उकार और मकार ये तीनों संयुक्त हैं। फिर जो 9वां मंत्र है मांडुक्य उपनिषद का, उसमें उन्होंने आकार को जागृत स्थान और वैश्वानर माना है। जागृत स्थानो वैश्वानरो आकार है, प्रथमा मात्रा जो पहली मात्रा है वो जागृत स्थान है और वैश्वानर है। और उकार जो द्वितीय मात्रा दूसरी मात्रा है वो स्वप्न स्थान और तेजस है। स्वप्न स्थान और तेजस द्वितीय मात्रा उसमें उसका संबंध स्वप्न स्थान से है और वो तेज संबंधी है। और जो मकार जो तृतीय मात्रा है वो सुषुप्त स्थान है, प्राज्यो मकार तृतीय मात्रा, वो उसका संबंध सुषुप्ति से है, सुषुप्ति, और वो प्राज्य से भी संबंध है उसका। तो ये तीन संबंध मांडुक्य उपनिषद में इन ओंकार को उन्होंने इस प्रकार से व्याख्यात किया है। अब इसका जो आध्यात्मिक जो स्वरूप है उसको यदि हम देखें तो शंकर ने इसको जो व्याख्या किया, शंकर ने कहा कि जिस प्रकार से प्रस्थ से जो तोले जाते हैं उसका अभिप्राय ये शंकर की व्याख्या का, उसी प्रकार प्रलय और उत्पत्ति के समय मानो प्रवेश और निर्गमन के द्वारा प्राज्य से विश्व और तेजस मापे जाते हैं। और क्योंकि ओंकार की समाप्ति पर, ओंकार का जब हम उसका ध्यान करते हैं या उसका मंत्रोच्चारण करते हैं ओंकार का, तो ओम ओम ओम, उसकी समाप्ति पर जैसे जो आ और ऊ है वो मय में से उसके कभी अंदर घुसते कभी बाहर निकलते हैं, ऐसा कहता है। क्योंकि ओंकार की समाप्ति पर उसका पुनः प्रयोग किए जाने पर मानो आकार और उकार मकार में प्रवेश करके उससे पुनः निकलते हैं। तो ये जागृत स्वप्न और सुषुप्ति, ये तीनों से संबंध बताया गया है, आ ई ना, आ ऊ और मा का।
Yeah, it's a very good answer even given by Professor Ranveer ji. In fact, let me explain it in a very easy terms. The Munda Upanishad want to say, because this Om word has been formed of 3 syllables, A, U and Me. And he says these 3 syllables have parallelism. They are not exactly Jagrita, Swapna or Sushupti, but they are just like Jagrita, Swapna and Sushupti of 3 states of a yogi or a human being. Just like is just like Jagriti, because Jagriti means creation. U is just like sustenance. When the Srishti gets created, then it sustains. So U symbolizes that sustenance and the Ma symbolizes destruction. So that is how the 3 syllables of Om have been symbolized or represented by three states of the life. Just like Jagriti means just to get generation, get generated. And Swapna means just to sustain something, and Sushupti means go into the decreation level. So these states have been equated and not exactly those things. So it's a simile we can say as per Munda Upanishad. And now we are having certain questions with our another speaker, Acharya Brahmdev. I'm just putting him on the screen. Acharya Brahmdev, the first question to you is because you said this Ishvara is not distinct from the laws of creation. So our some curious person in the audience, she wants to know how would you clarify it that the Ishvara is not distinct from the laws of creation. You just try to explain this, your statement a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I've been taking the practical applications of the knowledge of the first chapter, the subject of God, in the course of what I was explaining. I think I complimented Professor Ranveer ji because he was more on the theory side. And from that point of view, when we say God is not distinct from this universe, he's also within this universe. I gave the example of the cheese ball in syrup, or the cotton ball in water, rasgulla. But ghulta milta nahi hai. It doesn't blend to become one entity. Then as regards to the laws in the creation, the internal laws of the creation, and respecting even the teachings of the Vedas, God is the first and foremost one to abide by these laws, to abide by these teachings. Never going to make something which is totally against what is in the universe, or the laws of the creation, the laws of the universe, or what is within the teachings of the Vedas. Like when Ishvara says, na dvitiyo, na tritiyo, na chaturtho, it won't create a second, third, or fourth God to compete with himself, because it's a chaos. Like if in a country we have 10 prime ministers or 10 presidents, heads of states or heads of government, it's going to be chaos. God is no exception to that universe, because, as I referred to, it has a process to bring rainwater down the rivers to the sea. Another process to make it go up again. It will never use that same process which brings it down to the sea to go up the mountain. So being inclusive in this world, in this universe, but it's also not mixing up with this universe.
It's a very good explanation, and let me also add certain things to it. I just want to clarify it in very easy terms. We know that this law of creation is the law of God, because there is a niyam. Where there is a niyam, there is a niyanta. If the law is there, then the law maker is the God. So the law of God cannot be separated from the God himself, because they are the one and the same thing. If the governor, if he gives some, applies some rule to govern, so those rules are made by himself, and so you cannot distinguish his rules, the rule of the governor from the niyanta, rules, niyam from the niyanta itself, the rules from its governor itself. So in very simple terms, because the whole creation, it is governed by the rules made by God, and those rules are known as Rita. Ritansa Satyansa Vidhatam Pasodhyaya. So this Rita is the law of God, and it was created by God himself. So it cannot be separated from God. So second question to Brahmadev ji is, Dr. Anand Kumar Sharma ji, he wants to ask how to bring Satyaarth Prakash in the limelight globally. What is your experience on interfaith forums? Which part of Satyaarth Prakash sells well among other faiths? So because you were talking about the Satyaarth Prakash, everybody is reading, so he just wants to know this, sir.
That's
Who wants to know about your experience regarding Satyaarth Prakash?
Just allow me to add one thing to the question, even to Professor Ranveerji, about Sagun and Nirgun. We need to understand, when I was explaining about Sakar and Nirakar, I said these are totally opposite attributes. And it's right to say that Maharishi Dayanand didn't refer to it within the description of Sagun and Nirgun. But I was talking about the common belief that Sagun is Sakar and Nirgun is Nirakar. Unfortunately, that common belief holds no water, and it's totally wrong.
You are right. Because when we talk about Sakar or Nirakar, the formless and form, so God has no form. In that case, God is only Nirakar. It cannot be Sakar. But so far as the Sagun and Nirgun are concerned, he can be both.
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
about the question of getting the Satyaarth Prakash familiar to the whole world.
Means question is, what part of the Satyaarth Prakash is more selling to the other faiths?
I won't deal with one particular part of it.
Yeah.
Say, let's look at what are the commonalities in the Satyaarth Prakash as explained by Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati with the other faith groups. Like the question of Ishwar Nyayakari karma, we have to pay for each and every single karma that we do, or we reap the good outcome. This is something which is universally accepted. God as omnipresent, though certain believe it's living in the seventh or fourth sky or somewhere else in one particular place, they also say it's here with me. So it's when it's here with me, it's omnipresent. So we need to look for concepts, for ideas that are common to everybody and let them know that the source is the Vedas, the one and only revelation to mankind at the time of creation of the human species in this universe. So whatever came after. In fact, I have a paper to finalize for the Mauritius Council of Religions. It's about interfaith and intercultural dialogue. But you know, I have a problem with this paper because the Vedas don't speak about interfaith and intercultural dialogue. When the Vedas were given to us, there was no other faith, no other groups. Yes. So what I do, I will have to spell this out clearly, but then spell out the universal concepts. Like when I'm saying Krinbanto Vishwa Mariam, it's being noble not by blood or by lineage, it's being noble by words, by thoughts, by words and actions. When I'm talking about God, I'm talking about God where I'm living the concept of I'm aware God is with me at all times. Not that I've shut it in a room or in some other place and I'm free to roam and do whatever I want in the world. I want the universal values. Let's look at chapter 3. When it talks about purity of mind, body and spirit. Adhirgata manashuddhyate. Let's look at the principles of Raj Dharma, good governance. Everybody is talking about good governance these days in the world. But do we realize these come from the Vedas and Manusmriti, and Maharishi Dayanand has brought it to us?
And there is a sub-question, how to make Satyaarth Prakash popular globally.
So we have to take extracts, like we say. We have a book, Satyaarth Prakash Sar, which talks about the essence of the Satyaarth Prakash. Probably have to develop something like that, but where the concepts fit into the international context and the current time, where it's more palatable and more appealing to people because they will find the universal concepts and they will know that these come from the Vedas, which is the source of all true knowledge and all that is derived therefrom. So we need to identify concepts.
Thank you, Acharya Brahmdev. Now I just want to announce one of our person from audience, he wants to know the next day, tomorrow's program. And let me inform, tomorrow we are going to have a very illuminating lecture on the different works done on Satyaarth Prakash, different editions of the Satyaarth Prakash, and the speaker is a very good scholar, and he has developed, you will be glad to know, he has developed so many fonts, a Sanskrit font, where the Unicode Sanskrit font, you can write in English as well as in Sanskrit with that font. So tomorrow's lecture is going to be very, very interesting. And although the subject of the lecture will be based upon the first chapter of Satyaarth Prakash, but certain other themes will also be dealt with, because there are so many editions, so many works have been done on Satyaarth Prakash. So he will be giving us the information of works. And now at the end, I'm just going to thank you all, and just I would like to take here few names. Ashwini Kumar Rajpal. I would like to thank Ashwini Kumar Rajpal, Director, International Foundation for Vedic Science, Canada. I would like to thank Ram Dhoni Haridev, President of Arya Sabha, Mauritius. I would like to thank Professor Isram Ram Vilas from South Africa. I would like to thank Professor Brahmdev from Gurukul Kangadi, Professor Virendra Alankar from Punjab University, Chandigarh. I would like to thank Komal Chandra Radha Kishunji from Mauritius itself, Shanti Mahavir from Mauritius, Professor Vikram Kumar Viveki from Chandigarh, Dr. Vinay Vidyalankar from Gurukul Kangadi, Dr. Dharmendra Kumar from Gurukul Kangadi. I would like to thank Pandit Ramaswarup from Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to thank Harris Ramaswarup. I would like to thank Alois Patrick from Germany. I would like to thank Ekm Rajan from Kerala, Krishna Prakash Tripathi from Banaras, the city of Pandits, and I would like to thank Dr. Vivek Kohli, principal in Ambala. I would like to thank Professor Naresh Dhiman, who will be the tomorrow's speaker, and I would like to thank Om Sabha, the retired magistrate of Delhi. So with all these thanks, and I would like to thank all whose names I don't know. In fact, your presence is very valuable to make this conference or make this workshop on Satyaarth Prakash a success, because this is the magnum opus of Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati, and if we are not going to discuss Satyaarth Prakash here, then who will discuss? And this is the most glaring and most important work that needs to be highlighted in the whole world, and I think all our participants are going to participate daily till 30th of June, just to discuss the various chapters, their importance, their application, their relevance in modern context, just like the relevance of Om. This word is very much important in modern context. Now the science has proved that Om is the cosmic sound. So if you are going to recite Om, you are going to be benefited. And if you want to attain a moksha, you want to uplift yourself at the higher level of divinity, then you must recite Om with Vedic mantras, and all other names, they are the mundane names. They are not going to elevate you to the higher levels of divinity. They will keep you either at the level of humanity, or they may bring you down to the Naraka, to the lower species. With these words, I thank you, Acharya Brahmdev, who gave a very illuminating lecture. Now, somebody wants to say something, please.
Yes, Professor Ji, I'm Acharya Brahmdev. 1 minute.
Yeah.
We owe a great thanks to Ishwar God,
yeah,
for knowledge He's given to us in the Vedas, for the opportunity for us to meet.
Yes.
Samay Amartya ke liye. Then to the Rishis, who unfolded the knowledge of the Vedas to us.
Yeah.
To the Guru, mentors for life. To our parents and all those who gave us the sanskar in this direction.